Welcome back, listeners. It seems like so many of you are really fascinated by stories of people bouncing back from setbacks, like turning those tough times into something incredible.
Yeah, it's definitely a theme that keeps popping up throughout history.
It does. And we thought it'd be pretty interesting to take a deep dive into some stories of some really famous people
Yeah.
who were doubted, rejected,
Mm-hmm.
even told they'd never make it, but then they did.
Totally.
So we've got some inspiring stories lined up for you today.
It's gonna be fun to see how many times we say "I told you so" to those
Right.
critics,
Right.
to those who doubted. Yeah.
Okay, so where should we start? I mean, we could talk about this pattern in all kinds of fields, right?
Yeah, we could. Maybe art. That's always a good place to start. It's really fascinating how what's considered great art changes over time, you know?
Absolutely. And, the perfect example of that is Vincent van Gogh, right? I mean, the guy's paintings sell for millions now.
Crazy, isn't it?
But when he was alive, he only sold one painting, and it was to his sister.
Talk about being ahead of your time.
Right. It really makes you think about, like, how we define success in the art world. Like, what makes something valuable?
Definitely. I mean, it seems like a lot of it comes down to who's in power at the time.
Right. Like, who's deciding what's good and what's not?
Yeah, what's trendy, what's acceptable, or even just like what's shocking.
Yeah, exactly. And it also makes you wonder if Van Gogh even cared about fame.
Hmm. Good point.
Like, was he even trying to be successful in the way that we think of it now?
He seems so focused on his craft, like really expressing his vision no matter what.
Right.
Maybe that's part of what allowed him to keep going, even with all that rejection.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, that makes sense. Like, when you truly believe in what you're doing, it's easier to ignore the doubters.
Totally.
And speaking of pushing through rejection, let's talk about Elvis Presley for a
Oh,
moment.
yeah.
Can you imagine him stepping onto the stage at the Grand Ole Opry,
Yeah.
all fired up, ready to share his music with the world, and the manager, Jimmy Denny?
Says, "You're not going anywhere, son. You better go back to driving trucks."
Ouch.
I know. Talk about a miscalculation.
Major miscalculation.
Elvis went on to become one of the biggest musical icons in history.
Absolutely.
But it does make you wonder why someone like Denny would said that, you know?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Was he threatened by Elvis's energy? Or maybe he just didn't understand the appeal.
Yeah, or maybe he was having a bad day. Who knows?
He missed the boat on that one, that's for sure.
He did. But it makes you think, right? How many other incredible talents are out there?
Totally.
We're getting shut down before they even have a chance.
Right, like before they can even get started.
Yeah.
It happens in all kinds of fields, not just music. Think about that Beethoven, for example.
Beethoven.
Yeah. Imagine composing some of the most beautiful, powerful symphonies in the world
Yeah.
while being deaf. That's a level of dedication, perseverance that most people can't even fathom. That's amazing. It really puts things in perspective, doesn't it?
It does. And maybe maybe those early critics weren't entirely wrong, you know? Maybe some of these folks were a little rough around the edges, unconventional.
Right.
But maybe that's what allowed them to be so innovative.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, if you're not afraid to break the rules, you're more likely to discover something new.
Exactly.
It's like their unconventionality was their superpower.
I like that.
Okay, and speaking of unconventionality, let's talk about Albert Einstein.
Einstein, yeah.
I mean, here's the guy who revolutionized our understanding of the universe. But as a kid, he was labeled as slow.
Wow.
He didn't talk till he was 4, had trouble reading.
Seriously.
And one of his teachers even said he was slow-witted.
I can't believe that. How did they miss his potential?
It's like, how do you miss that?
It really makes you think about what we value as intelligence, right?
Right.
I mean, Einstein clearly thought differently, processed information in a way that was unique to him. And maybe those traditional measures of intelligence just didn't apply.
It's almost like he was too far ahead to be understood.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And it makes you wonder how many other Einsteins are out there, right?
Oh, yeah.
Struggling to fit into a system that doesn't recognize their unique way of thinking.
That's a really heartbreaking thought. How much potential are we missing out on?
Right.
Because we're not looking in the right places, or we're not valuing different ways of thinking.
Yeah, exactly. And if we're talking about missed potential,
Yeah.
let's not forget about the world of sports.
Oh, good point. Lots of stories there.
So many stories. Michael Jordan and Bob Cousy,
Wow. Both legends.
both legends, both cut from their high school basketball teams.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and Michael Jordan even said, quote, I've failed countless times in my life. That's why I succeed.
I love that quote.
It's so true, though, isn't it?
It is. It's like each failure is a learning opportunity. It's a chance to get back up and try again, but even stronger.
Yeah, and it also shows how important resilience is. Like
Absolutely.
not letting setbacks define you, you know?
Yeah, not giving up on yourself just because someone else doesn't see your potential.
Exactly.
Speaking of resilience in sports, have you heard the story about Vince Lombardi?
Vince Lombardi, the football coach.
Yeah. He was once told that he had very limited knowledge of football and a complete lack of motivation.
No way. I mean, he's like legendary.
Right. Talk about a misjudgment of character.
Seriously. It seems like some people are just destined to prove the doubters wrong.
Absolutely. They thrive on it. It fuels them.
Yeah, maybe that's the secret ingredient, right? Like having something to prove.
It could be. It gives you that extra drive, that extra push.
Yeah. So we've got artists, musicians, scientists, athletes, all facing rejection, all proving the doubters wrong. What do you think is the common thread that connects all these stories?
Well, there's definitely talent, hard work, all that. But I think it goes deeper than that. I think it's about this refusal to accept limitations,
Mm-hmm. I like that.
both from others and from themselves, you know?
Yeah, like not letting other people's opinions define you, but also not letting your own doubts hold you back.
Exactly.
That's a great point. It's like owning your own narrative,
Yeah.
defining your own path.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of defying expectations, let's talk about Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah. Marilyn Monroe. From Norma Jean Baker to a Hollywood icon.
Right. And before she became an icon, she was just a young, aspiring model, and she was told she should become a secretary or marry someone.
Oh, wow. That's just...
I know, talk about missing the mark.
They really did.
It's like, hello, have you seen her?
Right?
It really shows how limiting societal expectations can be, especially for women.
Definitely. But Marilyn, she just refused to be put in a box.
She did.
She had her own vision for herself, and she went after it.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of refusing to be put in a box,
Yeah.
Winston Churchill.
Churchill.
The guy failed 6th grade, lost every election he ran in till he was 62.
And then became prime minister during one of the most challenging times in history.
Right. He led Britain through World War II.
It's incredible.
It is. And it makes you wonder where that grit comes from, you know?
Yeah. I think part of it was just his personality. He was really stubborn, you know, and he never backed down from a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think it was his sense of purpose. He really believed in what he was doing, and that belief just sustained him through all the setbacks, you know?
Yeah, like he had this inner fire that just wouldn't quit.
Exactly. Like that quote of his, never give in, never give in, never, 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 and nothing great or small, large or petty, never give in, except to convictions of honor and good sense. It's pretty powerful, right?
It is powerful. It's like a mantra for resilience.
Yeah, totally.
And it's something we all need to hear, especially in a world that tells us to quit when things get tough, you know?
Absolutely.
And while we're on the topic of folks who refuse to give up,
Okay.
let's add Sigmund Freud to the mix.
Freud, the father of psychoanalysis.
Yeah. He was literally booed off the stage
Really?
when he first presented his ideas to the European scientific community.
That's, wow, that's harsh.
It is. But his ideas went on to revolutionize our understanding of the human mind, right?
Yeah, it just goes to show how difficult it can be to introduce new ideas, especially when they challenge the status quo.
Right. It's like anything that really changes how we see the world is going to meet with some resistance, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's almost like a rite of passage for groundbreaking thinkers.
Maybe is.
But the question is, how do you know when to keep pushing and when to let go?
Right. Because, I mean, some ideas just aren't good ideas, right?
Exactly. It takes a lot of, takes a lot of discernment, a lot of self-awareness to know the difference, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I think one key factor is passion.
Passion.
Yeah, if you truly believe in what you're doing, if it comes from a place of genuine curiosity, like a real desire to make a positive impact, then you're more likely to persevere through the challenges.
That makes sense. It's like passion fuels resilience.
Right, like it gives you the energy to keep going, even when things get tough.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got passion, perseverance, a willingness to challenge the status quo. These are starting to sound like the key ingredients in the recipe for success.
That's a good recipe so far.
It is.
Yeah.
But, you know, even with all those ingredients, it's not always a straight line to success.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Not at all. Sometimes there are detours, unexpected turns, even failures along the way.
Right, and sometimes those detours lead to the most amazing discoveries.
Absolutely. Take Charles Darwin, for example.
Far away.
His father was so disappointed in him, accused him of only caring about catching dogs and rats.
And yet he revolutionized our understanding of life on Earth.
Exactly. It's a great example of how a seemingly meandering path
Yeah.
can actually lead to really unexpected breakthroughs. Darwin's curiosity, his willingness to follow his interests wherever they led, that's what ultimately led him to develop one of the most important scientific theories of all time. Yeah, and speaking of unexpected journeys, let's talk about Thomas Edison for a moment.
Oh, Edison, yeah.
The guy was labeled too stupid to learn anything by his teachers, fired from 2 jobs for being unproductive.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And yet he went on to become one of the most prolific inventors of all time.
It's incredible. It's like a recurring theme here, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
These brilliant minds being underestimated, dismissed, even ridiculed.
It makes you wonder, what is it about unconventional thinkers that makes it so hard for the establishment to recognize their potential?
That's a good question. Maybe they just don't fit neatly into the existing categories.
Right, like they challenge the way things have always been done.
Exactly. And maybe that makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah, because it forces them to question their own assumptions.
Right, and maybe that discomfort is a sign that those unconventional thinkers are on something truly groundbreaking.
That's a good point. So maybe we need to be more open to those who challenge us, who make us feel a little uncomfortable.
Definitely. Otherwise, we risk stifling innovation,
Right. And speaking of embracing new ideas, let's talk about Walt Disney for a second.
Oh, Disney. Okay.
I mean, this guy faced bankruptcy multiple times before creating Disneyland.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that about Disneyland.
Yeah, and when he first proposed the idea, a lot of people dismissed it as a financial disaster waiting to happen.
Really? But it became a global phenomenon.
Exactly. And it really highlights the importance of having a vision, of believing in your dreams.
Yeah, and being willing to risk everything to bring that vision to life.
Absolutely. And sometimes the greatest successes come from daring to dream big, even when others tell you it's impossible.
It's true. You got to be willing to take those risks.
And speaking of defying expectations, let's talk about French actress Jeanne Moreau.
Okay.
So when she was 21, a casting director told her she wasn't pretty enough, wasn't photogenic enough, and basically that she should just give up acting altogether.
Ouch, that's harsh.
I know, but her response, okay, then I'll just have to do it my way.
Hello.
And she did. Her career spanned decades, over 100 films, a true testament to her talent and her unwavering self-belief.
It really shows you that you don't have to let other people's opinions define you.
Absolutely. You get to decide who you are and what you're capable of.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about artists, musicians, scientists, athletes, actors.
Yeah, a real mix.
What are some of the key insights that are emerging for you from all these stories?
Well, I'm really struck by the diversity of these stories. I mean, we have artists, scientists, athletes, entrepreneurs, all from different backgrounds, different eras, facing different challenges. But what unites them is this incredible drive, this refusal to be defined by their setbacks.
Yeah, like they all took those setbacks and used them as fuel,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, right? Because we started with the idea of bouncing back from failure,
Yeah.
but these stories are really about so much more than that.
Like it's about finding your voice, defying expectations, pushing boundaries, right? It's about discovering what you're truly capable of and then exceeding even your own expectations.
Yeah, and doing it all in the face of adversity. Like, none of these folks were just handed their success,
Right, they had to fight for
They
it.
had to overcome obstacles, endure criticism, and navigate a world that wasn't always ready for their vision.
Yeah, and maybe that's what makes their story so inspiring, right?
Totally.
Yeah,
Because it shows us that we can do it too.
we can.
We all have that potential within us.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of amazing people already, but there are so many more stories to tell.
I know. I'm excited to keep going.
We'll be back after a quick break with even more stories of resilience and triumph.
Stay tuned.
And we'll find out just how many times we can say, "I told you so," to those who doubted.
We will. It's amazing how just one person's determination, like their sheer will to succeed, can actually change, the course of history.
It's true. And it makes you think, like, how often do we let other people's opinions or their definition of success
Hold us back. you know?
All the time, probably. I think that's the big takeaway from these stories.
Yeah.
They're not just feel-good stories. They're like a call to action
Right.
to realize we all have the potential for something great,
We do.
but it's up to us to actually, develop that resilience, the self-belief, to keep going, even when it feels like the whole world is saying, give up.
Right. And speaking of folks who refuse to give up, let's talk about Charlie Chaplin.
Charlie Chaplin, okay.
I mean, early on, Hollywood studios basically rejected him.
Really?
Yeah. They thought his whole pantomime act was just nonsense.
And yet, he became a global icon.
He did. One of the greatest comedic icons of all time.
It's remarkable, really, how he turned what people thought as a weakness into, this defining part of his art.
It's true. What do you think is, what stands out to you about his story?
I think it's his ability to connect with people, on such a deep level, even without words.
There's something so universal about his humor and his pathos, too,
Yeah, totally. And it shows that sometimes the most powerful communication goes beyond words.
Absolutely. It's like tapping into something deeper.
Yeah.
Something that everyone can relate to, no matter what their background is.
Right. And then there's Enrico Caruso,
Caruso, the opera singer.
Yeah. One of the most famous opera singers of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, get this. His teacher told him he had no voice. He couldn't sing.
Oh, wow.
I know. And his parents even encouraged him to become an engineer instead.
Seriously, talk about a missed opportunity.
Right. But he followed his passion, even when the people closest to him doubted him.
That takes a lot of courage.
It does. What's really interesting here is that talent, it's not enough on its own,
Right.
It takes real self-belief to ignore those naysayers and just keep pushing forward.
Absolutely. Like, you have to decide who you're going to believe, yourself or those who doubt you.
And to wrap up this theme of resilience, let's end with a story that I think really embodies the idea of lifelong learning.
Okay, I'm ready.
Pablo Casals.
Casals, the cellist.
Yeah, one of the greatest cellists of all time. At 95, someone asked him why he still practiced, 6 hours a day.
6 hours a day at 95.
I know. And his response, because I still think I'm making progress.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is. It shows you that learning, it's not something you just finish,
Right.
It's a lifelong pursuit.
Yeah, journey.
And it makes you wonder, what's the point of success if you just stop growing, if you think you've arrived and stop pushing yourself?
I think these stories show us that true success, it's not a destination, It's a journey. It's all about constantly evolving, learning, and pushing yourself beyond what you think you're capable of.
It's true. So we started talking about bouncing back from failure, but now we're talking about, so much more.
Right. It's like finding your voice, defying expectations, pushing boundaries, right?
Yeah. It's about realizing what you're truly capable of and then striving to go even further.
It's about more than just achieving a goal. It's about living a life that actually has meaning,
Yeah.
with purpose.
It is. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, and I'm noticing this interesting pattern. So many of these people, they were told they lacked talent or potential in the very areas where they ended up excelling.
Right, like they were told they weren't good at the thing that they became famous for.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, how many brilliant minds are out there?
Oh, tons, probably.
I know. Who have been discouraged and silenced because they believed those who doubted them.
That's a sobering thought.
It is, and it also shows how important it is to, foster a culture that encourages risk-taking.
Yeah, a culture that celebrates those who are different, those who think outside the box.
Absolutely, because talent, it can manifest in so many different ways,
Yes, it can. And sometimes it takes a while for the world to catch up.
It does. Think about Van Gogh, He was so deeply misunderstood.
Yeah.
It took decades for people to appreciate his genius.
That's true. Imagine if he had given up, you know?
Right. What if he had listened to those critics who called him a madman?
It's scary to think about how much we might be missing out on because we're not open to different ways of thinking and creating.
It's true.
Yeah.
And it's not just about recognizing potential in others. It's also about recognizing it in ourselves,
Oh, yeah, totally. How many times have we talked ourselves out of something?
Oh, all the time, probably.
I know, right? Because we didn't think we were good enough, smart enough, talented enough, whatever it was.
Yeah, we let those inner critics win.
We do. But these stories, They show us that we are capable of so much more
We are.
than we often believe.
We are. So maybe the takeaway here is to be more open to possibilities,
Hmm.
both in ourselves and in others.
Absolutely. To challenge those assumptions we have about what talent looks like, what success looks like.
Right, because if we're not careful, we might miss out on the next Van Gogh, the next Einstein.
Exactly. And we might miss out on our own potential, too.
That's true. Okay, so we've talked about resilience, self-belief, the power of defying expectations, but what about passion?
Passion, the fuel that keeps us going, the fire that burns even when everything else feels dark.
Yeah. Like, think about Darwin spending years observing finches, collecting beetles, just because he was fascinated by the natural world.
Right. Or Beethoven, composing those incredible symphonies,
Yeah.
even as his hearing was fading.
Or Van Gogh pouring his heart and soul onto those canvases.
Yeah, these weren't just people who were chasing fame and fortune. They were driven by something much deeper, something that truly lit them up.
Yeah, and that passion, it's contagious.
It is. You can feel it in their work.
Yeah, and it inspires others. It draws people in. It creates the sense of possibility.
It's like, if they can do it, maybe I can too.
Exactly. So maybe that's the missing piece, right? It's not just about talent or hard work.
It's about finding that thing that sets your soul on fire.
Yeah, that thing that makes you want to get up every morning and create, to explore, to push yourself beyond what you thought was possible.
Yes. And when you find that thing, when your work aligns with your passion, that's when the magic happens,
That's when it all comes together.
Right. The setbacks become fuel. The challenges become opportunities.
Yeah.
And the journey becomes the reward.
It's about more than just achieving a goal. It's about living a life that is full of purpose, with meaning.
It is. It's about finding that sense of fulfillment that comes from doing something you truly believe in.
Absolutely. And that message, it resonates so deeply, especially in a world that can feel really chaotic and uncertain at times.
It does. Okay, we've talked about resilience, self-belief, the power of defying expectations, the importance of finding your passion, but
Yeah.
what else is there?
Well, I think there's one more element that's really essential to all these stories we've been discussing.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's the willingness to embrace the unknown.
Ah, the unknown, that big, scary, exciting space where anything is possible.
Exactly. Think about Darwin setting sail on the Beagle. No idea what he was going to find, what discoveries he was going to make.
Right. Or Einstein challenging all those established laws of physics.
Yeah.
Venturing into uncharted
Or
territory.
Disney, building Disneyland, this whole fantastical world that had never existed before.
It's like they all understood that real growth, true innovation, it comes from stepping outside of what's familiar.
It does.
From venturing beyond those well-trodden paths.
Yeah. And maybe there's even a little bit of trusting that even if you don't have all the answers, it'll all work out somehow.
Exactly. Trusting the process.
Right.
And being open to the unexpected, the serendipitous encounters.
Yeah.
The detours that often lead to the most amazing discoveries.
It's true. So maybe these folks, they were all explorers in their own way,
Yeah.
charting new territories, pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible.
Totally.
Yeah.
And their willingness to embrace that unknown, it was essential to their success.
Yeah, it's like you don't have to have all the answers before you take that first step.
You don't.
You do.
Sometimes you just got to jump in and figure it out as you go.
Right. Maybe that's the most inspiring takeaway from all of this,
Yeah.
That we all have the capacity to be explorers, to be pioneers,
We do.
to create something new, something meaningful, something that makes a real difference.
It's a call to action, to get out there, embrace the unknown, pursue our passions, be willing to fail.
And to never stop exploring.
Never stop exploring.
Okay, we've explored a lot of territory in this deep dive. We've talked about resilience, self-belief, the power of defying expectations, the importance of finding your passion, the willingness to embrace the unknown.
Quite a journey.
We've seen how all these qualities played a role in the lives of some really remarkable people.
Yeah, it's been inspiring.
And hopefully their stories have inspired you, our listeners, to live a little more courageously.
Yeah, more creatively.
More fulfilling lives. But there's one more thread I think we should pull on before we wrap up.
Okay, I'm listening.
The idea of legacy.
Legacy. Okay, what do you mean by that?
Well, we've been talking about these individuals' achievements,
Yeah?
their impact on the world, but what about the lasting impact?
Right, like what about the ripple effects of their work?
Exactly. How their ideas and their example continue to shape the world even after they're gone.
It's like their influence extends far beyond their own lifetime.
It does. Think about Van Gogh.
Okay.
His paintings, they're in museums all over the world now,
Yeah.
inspiring millions of people.
And his story, it's become the symbol of artistic vision.
It has. Or Einstein.
Yeah.
His theories, they revolutionized how we understand the
They
universe.
did. And they still shape scientific inquiry today.
They do. And his name has become synonymous with genius, right?
That has,
The power of the human mind to unlock those big mysteries.
yeah, those big cosmic mysteries.
And think about Disney. His creations, I mean, Mickey Mouse, Disneyland, it's all become this global phenomenon.
Yeah, it's incredible how much joy his work has brought to people.
It is. It's crazy to think that one person's vision can have such a profound and lasting impact.
It's mind-blowing. It really makes you think about your own impact, you know?
Yeah.
Like, what mark are we leaving on the world?
What are we creating that will outlive us?
What will inspire others,
Yeah.
even after we're gone?
That's a big question.
It is, but it's an important one, you know? And our legacy, it doesn't have to be something huge or world-changing.
Right.
It can be something small, something simple.
Yeah, like a kind word, a helping hand.
Exactly. A moment of inspiration that sparks a flame in someone else.
It can be a life lived with purpose.
Yeah, a commitment to making the world a better place.
Yeah, and it makes you think, right? Our legacies, they're all intertwined.
They
Our
are.
individual successes, they're amplified when we work together, when we support each other.
Or we lift each other up.
Yeah. So maybe that's the real challenge.
Okay, the real challenge.
To live a life that's worthy of being remembered, a life that inspires others,
Yeah,
a life that makes a real difference.
that's a challenge worth striving for.
It is. And I think we're all capable of rising to that challenge.
I agree. Because we all have that potential for greatness within us.
Okay, I think we've really dug deep into these stories.
We have.
I'm feeling inspired, but also a little overwhelmed, like there's so much to think about.
Yeah, it's a lot to process. So, what are some of the key takeaways for you?
Well, I'm really struck by the resilience of the human spirit.
Yeah, it's amazing. These individuals faced so many challenges, rejections, setbacks,
Yeah.
but they never gave up on themselves or their dreams.
Like they just had this deep conviction that they were meant for something more, something greater.
Right. And they were willing to put in the work.
They were.
To practice, to hone their skills, to persevere through the tough times, to see those failures as opportunities for growth.
Yeah, they were driven by their passion,
Absolutely.
by a deep sense of purpose, a desire to create something truly meaningful.
And they understood that they weren't meant to do it alone.
Right.
They found mentors, collaborators, communities that supported them.
Yeah, and they embraced the unknown, the uncertainty, the challenges.
They did. And they understood that luck wasn't just about chance.
Hmm.
It was about creating the conditions for success to happen.
It's about taking ownership of our choices, making the most of the opportunities that come our way.
Yeah, and cultivating a mindset that attracts good fortune,
Right. So maybe the takeaway is this. We all have the potential for greatness within us.
Absolutely. We all have the capacity to overcome those challenges, to achieve our dreams, to make a real impact.
It's about believing in ourselves, even when no one else does.
Yeah, and finding our passion, honing our skills, building a supportive community.
And embracing the journey with all its ups and downs.
Yeah, because that's where the real growth happens.
It is. So let's go out there and create something amazing.
Let's do it. Let's leave our mark on the world. Let's inspire others.
Let's make a difference. Let's live lives that are worthy of being remembered.
And let's do it together.
Okay, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have. It's been a fascinating conversation.
It has, but I think there's one final question we need to ask before we wrap up.
Okay, shoot.
We've talked about self-belief, passion, embracing the unknown, but what about the role of community?
Community. Yeah, that's huge. It's like the network of support that surrounds us.
Yeah.
The people who lift us up when we stumble. The voices that amplify our message.
Exactly. And it's tempting to think of these individuals' achievements as, like, solitary triumphs, right?
Yeah, like they did it all on their own.
But couldn't you argue that they benefited from the support of others, too?
Oh, definitely. Like,
Yeah.
did they have mentors, collaborators, friends and family who believed in them?
Right, a whole community of people who encouraged and inspired them.
It's true. No one achieves greatness in isolation. We all need support,
We do.
encouragement, guidance as we navigate those challenges in life.
Yeah, like a community that believes in us, that pushes us to grow, that celebrates our successes, helps us learn from our failures.
Exactly. It's like we're stronger together,
We are.
We can achieve more when we collaborate, when we share ideas, when we support each other through the tough times.
Absolutely. And community, It's not just about receiving support,
Right,
right?
right,
It's
right.
also about giving support.
Totally. It's about being a mentor to others,
Yeah.
sharing what you've learned,
Yeah.
contributing to the greater good.
Yeah, because in the end, it's not just about individual achievement, right?
Right.
It's about creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive,
To reach their full
to
potential.
make a meaningful contribution.
And that's a vision worth working towards.
It is. Okay. I think we've really, really dug deep into these stories,
Well, yeah.
and I'm feeling incredibly inspired. So, to recap, we've talked about resilience, self-belief, the power of defying expectations, the importance of finding your passion, the willingness to embrace the unknown, and the power of community.
Wow, it's been quite a journey.
It has, but I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is we are all capable of achieving extraordinary things.
Absolutely. We all have that potential for greatness.
We do. It's about believing in ourselves, even when it feels like no one else does.
Yeah, finding our passion, working hard, building those supportive relationships.
And embracing the whole journey, all the ups and downs, the twists and turns.
Because that's where the real growth happens.
It is. So let's go out there and create something amazing.
Let's make our mark on the world.
Let's inspire others. Let's make a difference. Let's live lives that are worthy of being remembered.
Absolutely, and let's do it together.
Okay, one last thing before we go.
Yeah.
We've talked about all these incredible people who defied expectations, achieved amazing things, but what about luck?
Luck. That mysterious force that seems to play a role in so many success stories.
Right. It's tempting to think that these individuals, they made it purely through talent, hard work, determination, but couldn't you say they also had a certain amount of luck along the way?
Oh, for sure. I think luck plays a part in everyone's life, to some degree.
Yeah, but how much of a part? And how do we even define luck?
Good question. Is it just being in the right place at the right time?
Yeah, or is it something more?
Maybe it's about being open to those opportunities, recognizing them when they pop up.
Right, like being prepared for when luck strikes.
Exactly. Because, as they say, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity.
That's true. So maybe luck isn't just random chance. Maybe it's about creating the conditions that make success more likely.
I think there's something to that, yeah. Like putting yourself out there, taking risks, being open to new experiences, new connections.
Yeah, cultivating a mindset that's like magnetic to good fortune.
Exactly.
Mm.
It's fascinating, though, to think about luck and, how much control we actually have over our own lives.
Right, like how much is fate versus, our own choices?
That's the age-old question, isn't it? And there's probably no easy answer.
Maybe not.
But I think these stories show that while we may not be able to control everything, we can definitely influence the direction our lives take.
Yeah, like we can take ownership of our choices, make the most of the opportunities that come our way, and cultivate that mindset that attracts good fortune.
Absolutely. And even when things are tough, when we face setbacks, we can still create our own luck, shape our own destiny.
You can. It's empowering, isn't it?
It is. Okay, so big picture. We've explored a lot.
We have resilience, self-belief, defying expectations, finding your passion, embracing the unknown, the role of luck.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground. What's it all mean? What's the takeaway?
I think it boils down to this. We are all capable of amazing things.
Absolutely. We all have that potential for greatness.
We do. And
Yeah.
it starts with believing in ourselves, even when it feels like no one else does.
Yeah, it's about finding what lights you up, working hard, building a supportive community around you.
And embracing the whole journey.
Yeah, the good, the bad, the unexpected.
Because that's where the real growth happens.
It is. So let's go out there and make something amazing.
Let's leave our mark on the world. Let's inspire others. Let's make a difference.
Let's live lives that are worthy of being remembered.
Absolutely. And let's do it together.
Okay, so we've talked about these amazing individuals who defied expectations, achieved great things. But let's zoom out for a second.
Okay.
What about the role of community in all of this?
Community. Yeah, it's easy to focus on individual achievements.
Right. Like it was all them, all their effort.
But really, they probably had a lot of help along the way, right?
Absolutely. Think about those teachers who inspired them,
Yeah.
the families who supported them, the countless unseen hands that helped them succeed.
Yeah, we're all part of this big web of interconnectedness.
We are. It makes you think about all the unsung heroes, right?
The people who never get the credit, but are just as important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it challenges us to think about how we can support others, how we can foster creativity and innovation.
Right, to make a world where everyone has the chance to thrive.
Yeah, because in the end, it's not just about us. you know?
Right.
It's about creating a culture where we celebrate each other.
We do.
We learn from each other. We lift each other up.
Yeah, because our legacies are intertwined.
They are.
Our individual successes are greater when we all work together.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this. What kind of ancestor do you want to be? What kind of world do you want to leave behind for future generations?
It's a big question, but it's a good one, you know?
It is. It makes us think beyond our own little bubble
Mm-hmm.
to consider the long-term impact of what we're doing.
Yeah, to strive to make the world a little bit better, you know?
A little more just, a little more equitable, a little more beautiful.
And to remember that even the smallest acts of kindness,
Yeah, of courage.
creativity,
They can have a ripple effect.
they can. Okay, that's it for this deep dive.
Thanks for joining us.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep pushing those boundaries, and keep believing in the power of the human spirit.
You know, it's kind of amazing how all these stories, they
Yeah.
really show how connected everything is.
Mm-hmm.
Like how one person's path can affect so many others.
It's true. And it brings us back to that question we talked about earlier, you know?
About legacy.
Yeah. What kind of legacy are we creating?
Right, because it's not just about the big names, right?
No, not at all.
It's about all of us.
Yeah, it is.
We're all part of this bigger story, right?
Right.
Like each of us is contributing our own chapter to the story of humanity.
Yeah, and those contributions, those ripples, they spread out, you know, far beyond just our own little circle.
It's true. I mean, think about all the teachers who inspired these folks we talked about.
Yeah, the families who supported them.
The all those people behind the scenes who never got the spotlight.
Right, but who were just as important. Yeah, they were. It really makes you think about those unsung heroes, you know?
It does. And it makes you think about how we can support others too, you know?
Right, how we can encourage creativity and innovation.
How we can create a world where everyone has the opportunity to just, like, shine.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe that's the real takeaway here, right? It's not just about achieving our own goals.
Yeah.
It's about building a culture of, a culture of support.
Yeah. Encouragement, collaboration.
Exactly, where we celebrate each other's successes.
Yeah.
We learn from each other's failures.
We lift each other up, you know? We inspire each other.
Yeah, we do. And in the end, our legacies, they're all intertwined.
They are. Our individual success is amplified when we work together, when we support each other.
It is. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
What kind of ancestor do you want to be? What kind of world do you want to leave behind?
That's a great question. It makes you think about the long-term impact of what we're doing, you know?
It does.
Yeah.
And to remember that even the smallest acts of kindness, courage, creativity, they can make a difference.
They can. Like those ripples, they spread out further than we can imagine.
So let's go out there and be the change we want to see, right?
Let's do it.
Let's embrace our own potential.
Let's support each other.
Yeah, let's create legacies that will inspire generations to come.
That's a great way to end this deep dive.
It is. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep pushing those boundaries.
And keep believing in the power of the human spirit.
We'll see you next time.